Hello, welcome to day 6 of the whole game development thing. This looks like trash. We'll fix it later. To get everyone back up to speed, day 6, this is the game design document day where we are putting together an idea of a very first game we want to make. Something to put together, something relatively simple and easy to get our feet wet with Unreal Engine, especially since there's been updates in the time I've done this, and I don't remember everything that's going on with the engine. Coffee. So that's the main goal of today. We wanted to just get a game design document up and running, so we have some kind of plan going forward into future weeks about what we're going to make for our first game. If you occasionally hear noises from outside, it's because I have the window open. It is 80 degrees in my apartment right now, so that's fine. So if you remember the first video from almost a year ago now, if you remember the first video, the ultimate goal of a game I'm trying to make in the future is a very kind of in-depth, logic, story-based kind of puzzle game along the lines of Riven. And it seemed only natural for me to start my first game with that kind of general idea in mind. I want to make basically just a very small, condensed little version of that experience that might last for 10, 15, 20 minutes or something like that, depending on how long it takes people to solve the puzzles. It's going to be very heavy, I think, on environment and learning how to communicate things through environmental cues. That's going to be especially important. The puzzles themselves, working them into the environment in kind of a logical way is going to be a big challenge. Granted, I don't think we're going to be super stickler about making everything blend in and be perfect this first go around. We're just trying to get basic if-and statements figured out and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. Perfect. So welcome to the design document for Spooky Cave thing. Working title, obviously. So as Jacob said, I basically got this document from the link Jacob gave me and deleted all the stuff that I needed to and started putting my own stuff in. Most of this document is already filled out. I tried filling it out live one time and the video was a mess, so I just did it on my own and now I'm going to walk you through it. Keep in mind, this might be a bit rudimentary. This first game is going to be something I'm going to figure out more as I go along. I'll explain more what I mean about that in a minute. But Spooky Cave game is a first-person horror puzzler where the player must solve logic puzzles in order to reach the story goal. Obviously, like I said, for inspiration, Riven and Riven's puzzles being incorporated in the game's world. The biggest inspiration for this right now, I'll probably have more later, but that's the idea. And as I said, player experience in each area, about 2, there might be more. Player will have to look for environmental clues and use logic and deduction in order to remove an obstacle blocking their progress forward. To give you a better idea of the kind of game I'm trying to go for, I had this idea of a story hook where essentially imagine guy, Old West town, late 1800s, something like that. He's living in town as you are wont to do. God, I'm not good at this. Kind of living in an Old West town of sorts, and one day he gets a letter from his brother saying that his brother is waiting for him in a cave just outside of town, and he wants the protagonist to meet him there. And the protagonist reveals, through some on-screen dialogue, that his brother's been dead for 4 years. What's going on? Story hook. Do we know the answer yet? Of course not. I need to work on that. But that's the basic idea. You as the protagonist show up to this place. There's this cave. It's it used to be kind of maybe an old mining operation. You have to solve a puzzle to get into the cave, and you have to solve another couple puzzles to be able to progress through the cave to get to the story goal of some kind. What that story goal will be, I will figure out later, but for right now, for basic purposes, I just need some kind of hook, just some kind of motivation to get the player to go somewhere. We can figure that out later. Right now, we are literally just trying to put something extremely basic together to get the ball rolling. So that's the idea. Development software, Unreal 5.4. Apparently it's 5.5 now. Target audience, it's very much kind of cerebral puzzle game with environmental based puzzles. You're going to be wanting to pay attention, so people are wanting to slow down more and you have to take in the environment around you and all that kind of stuff, which leaves a lot of room for environmental storytelling stuff that I didn't think about. Pin in that? We'll put a pin in that. The concept, gameplay overview is kind of what I said earlier, where The game will consist of 2 main puzzle areas. It might be 3 or more. I think this is something we'll want to mess with a little bit as we learn the engine more and learn how to place objects more. I think I have general ideas, but I also want to... What I really liked about Riven was being able to, like, you come across... Not even artifact, you come across some kind of machinery, and it has a bunch of buttons and levers and random switches and things, and you have zero clue how it works. For someone who lives there and this is their day-to-day, they understand perfectly how the machine works. They go boop, 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 or they pull the lever, do whatever, and the thing they need to happen happens. But you as a player who has never been here before have to figure out yourself through just experimentation and finding the right sequence of these buttons and levers to pull in order to get the machine working the way you want it so you can move forward. So that is one thing I definitely want to incorporate in this game. I'm gonna have to learn how to model things, aren't I? Oh god. With this gameplay overview, this is something I was having a little bit of trouble with going through this design document, especially with the mechanics themselves. Hello, Editing Alex right here, and I am re-recording this section because I did not explain it well earlier. Okay, so when it was coming to the game mechanics section of the game design document, I was hitting a peculiar snag of sorts. There are different kinds of puzzle games, obviously. What a lot of people think of immediately when they think of puzzle games are things like Portal, Talos Principle, Baba Is You, things like that, where there's a core gameplay concept or an idea, and then you have a bunch of different modifiers or blocks that affect that idea in interesting ways. And every single puzzle in the game is the core concept. So if we're talking about Portal, we have the portal gun combined with the other modifiers like cubes, lasers, energy pellets, turrets, those kinds of things. And every single puzzle is taking the core game concept and all these modifiers, putting them together and mixing them up in interesting ways for you, the player, to now figure out this new interaction that these different concepts or ideas have with each other. Adventure puzzle games, such as Riven or Abduction, a lot of the games Cyan Worlds makes, I'm sure there are others, but those come to mind right now, they do not work this way. The only central idea that you follow through the whole thing is the idea of manipulating your environment and walking around and making sure you're being observant. Otherwise, every single puzzle that you come across has its own logic to it and its own individual way you need to solve it. For this game document, with the game mechanics section listing the different game mechanics and all that kind of stuff, we need a different way of thinking about this. So what I was thinking is, instead of thinking it in terms of what mechanics do we put together to make these puzzles happen, instead I want to think of it like every little puzzle that we put into this game is its own little mini game inside of this larger game, with its own mechanics, its own logic to it, that kind of thing. So instead of listing all the game mechanics outside of walking around, observing, and messing with machines, I'm going to list each puzzle as its own little game within the game, with its own little mechanics, its own little things you need to figure out. As an example, or a weird contrived example, say you have a door with an interesting lock you need to figure out, you have a power grid, and you have a code with a new numbering system that you have to figure out. These are all very separate things that require different lines of thinking. You can't have a blanket set of mechanics that cover all 3 of these. But you can think of them in terms of their own little games contained within the game. They all have their own mechanics to them, they all have their method of logic behind them, and it's up to you to solve them. They can relate to each other in certain ways. Don't get me wrong, I think that would be really interesting, but with the kind of puzzle game that I'm trying to make, thinking of a list of mechanics and trying to build puzzles out from those mechanics doesn't quite work. So game design documents are meant to be fiddled with and used for your own purposes, so I'm choosing to go a different route in order to make the gameplay of this game make more sense. We're gonna figure out more of the puzzles later, but that's the idea. Hope that makes sense. Explained it better now. Back to me from 30 minutes ago. Go. From here we're getting to some of the kind of lower level stuff that, like, all of this is going to be iterated on, but I think especially this stuff is going to be iterated on a lot more. Art design, I think I'm going to go for more realistic environments and textures, but texturing is hard and art is hard, and I kind of want to get something together and not bog myself down into getting all this stuff perfect. So it's going to be a little clobbered together, but then how do I make the environmental puzzles work? Put a pin in that, put a pin in that. Audio, music, I got instruments, they're beautiful. I was just going to put something together with that, and hopefully it's good. Sound effects, I think these are going to be a really big thing for this kind of gameplay, especially when you're working with machinery. The audio feedback is extremely important to, has my action done something? Has something happened? Or if you're just like a clunk and like just nothing changes, that's a pretty good indication that like, okay, there's something blocking the way or there's something not working right. I think sound effects are going to be really important for this, for deducing how machinery works. And as far as UI is concerned, I think I just want to have a little middle dot in the screen that just appears when you find an interactable object. I don't want anything noisy. There's no reason to have anything more. I do want to see if we can get that one effect that we saw with Riven in the first video, where you click on a particular machine or kind of puzzle element and the screen kind of locks into place and you can interact with all the different bits. I do want to see if we can get something like that going. And then the controls going to be extremely simple. I don't want any of the gameplay itself to be in the control scheme, if that makes sense. I want it to be purely environmental and you just clicking on objects to see how they function or how they work or how they move or what changes, things like that. Development timeline, I will figure this out more later. Okay, that was a lot of explaining myself and I'm not sure I got things through very well, but that's the general idea of what I'm going for an initial foray into developing an Unreal Engine. The first things I want to get off the ground next week, just starting out, is I literally just want to make a playable space and I want to make a character walk around in that playable space. We're starting extremely simple and basic. That is all we are doing next time. And then we're going to see if we can build things out from there. The more I think about it, the more complicated this is coming out to be, but you got to start somewhere. So anyhow, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it a lot. We are properly back this time. I was going to say hopefully, but we are properly back this time, and I'm going to do my absolute hardest to commit to it. Even if it's not every single week, you know, like I said, I have other projects going on, I have a new job going on, all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to do my absolute best to get a video like this out every week. Not just for y'all to have entertainment, but like this is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and it's not going to happen on its own. I got to commit to it, and this is the only way for me to do that. I would usually have a commentary at the very end of the video. That being said, I have not posted in a long time, and most of the comments from day 5 were of Oliver Dive constantly reminding me that he misses me and he wants me to come back, and I appreciate it. Oliver Dive, you're wonderful. Thank you for watching and being invested in the project, and everyone else who is also watching, who's trying to get into game development. I hope this is a good point for you to see that things happen and your projects fall off and it's hard to keep on track all the time, especially when you have so much other stuff, so many other things going on in your life. And sometimes you need to take a break and deal with that other stuff, but it is something you can always come back to, and it's always gonna be here waiting for you to learn it. As long as you're getting back to it, progress is progress, and progress cannot be taken from you. So yeah, I am going to see y'all again next week. We're gonna go back in Unreal Engine and we are going to start figuring this out. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see y'all next week. Keep it sleazy.